So we thought this was a good time right after the election and before Veterans Day to try to push this issue closer to the top of the agenda. Not only for the 1/5 of military personnel who identify themselves as atheist or having no religion, but for all service members who do not belong to that increasingly powerful minority of evangelical Christians who are using the infrastructures of our military to market their religion. Today I want to start by introducing former First Lieutenant Wayne Adkins. Wayne began his service with the Army in 1985 and did 4 years of active duty. Later, in 1998, he joined the Ohio National Guard and in 2004 volunteered to serve in Iraq, where he spent more than a year as a public affairs officer. You will hear in his comments that Wayne is also a tolerant person. Even though he walked away from his own Bible studies when he decided it just didn't add up for him, I happen to know that he is totally accepting of his kids going to church with their mom and went out of his way to accommodate the religious needs of the soldiers who served under him. But in 2006, Wayne made a choice. He chose to resign his commission after the Army put him through a bureaucratic ordeal that resulted from the complaint he lodged against a general who made disparaging and discriminatory public remarks about atheists. This event is called Atheists in Foxholes. That there is no such thing is an oft-repeated canard that makes the atheists who have spent time in foxholes pretty upset, to say the least. So Wayne is one such atheist, and I will let him tell his story now. Wayne Adkins.
Thank you, Lori. Good morning. I'm going to date myself just a little bit here. It was 1984 when I first joined the Army. I signed up on the delayed entry program while I was still in high school. I served on active duty from 1985 until 1989. As an atheist, I realized right away that the Army had a preference for the religious. In basic training, I was given the choice between going to chapel, one of the only air-conditioned buildings on the base that trainees had access to, or going on a work detail in the summertime Georgia heat. I also learned that the Army would not put atheists on my dog tags, opting instead to label me as having no preference. Of course, there's a world of difference between having no preference and preferring atheism. So as soon as I got the chance, I paid and had my own dog tags made. I considered these small things and I let them go. Years later, in 1998, I enlisted in the Ohio Army National Guard, and I ran into some of the same things. I found that the Army was still afraid of the term atheism, so I had more dog tags made. In 2002, when I was in officer candidate school, I was again given the option of going to chapel or being put on a work detail. I was a little older and a little wiser, and along with another candidate, I challenged the instructor, and he backed down on that decision. I was glad to see that if I spoke up and raised a little consciousness, I could make a little difference. Considered it a small victory, and then came Afghanistan and Iraq. I volunteered for deployment to Iraq with the 196th Mobile Public Affairs Detachment. Part of my job as a public affairs officer was news analysis, and in the course of this work, I began to notice that there were a lot of officers, non-commissioned officers, and in particular chaplains, who, while giving interviews to the press, were dredging up the old canard that there are no atheists in foxholes. They were also making other disparaging remarks about atheist and agnostic soldiers. Chaplains were saying that atheists can know how to dig a foxhole, but unless you are spiritually fit, you won't have the courage to stick your head out of the hole. That religion in the military is not a luxury, it is a necessity. That not only are there no atheists in foxholes, but there are no atheists among soldiers anytime during war. And the commanders recognize that spiritually fit soldiers are better fighters. I did not consider these things small. When someone says that there are no atheists in foxholes, it can either be taken literally or figuratively. When it's taken literally, it is patently false. The fact is, there are and have always been a number of atheists serving courageously in our military, around the world, including in many foxholes. To deny that they exist is to deny that they serve, and that is slanderous. Taken figuratively, it is actually more offensive. It implies that all atheists are actually liars and cowards. that they really do believe what they say they don't believe. And as soon as they get good and scared, they'll admit they believe it. So I went to my division equal opportunity officer and asked him what could be done about chaplains publicly insulting their own soldiers on the basis of religion. The division level equal opportunity NCO was clueless. So what did he do? He went to the division chaplain and he asked him, are chaplains allowed to say these things? The chaplain assured him that they were, and as far as he was concerned, that was the end of it. So I checked the regulations myself. Army Regulation 600-20 says that the Army will provide an environment free of unlawful discrimination and offensive behavior. It says that the use of terms used to degrade or connote negative statements pertaining to race, color, gender, national origin, and religion constitute unlawful discrimination. The EO rep was wrong, and I consider this a big thing. Even though I could have used my position as a public affairs officer, which gave me daily contact with the media, as a platform in this issue, I didn't. It would have been bad for my unit, and I was certain that if I remained professional and did the right thing, the Army would too. So I waited until my deployment was over to pursue the proper channels, bring these discriminatory remarks to the right person's attention, point to the regulations, and let the Army do the right thing. What happened next is something that I've already written about in a few places online, but it's a story I want to tell you here because it illustrates why we need the streamlined new policies of the Secular Coalition and the Military Association of Atheists and Free Thinkers that we're asking for. When I first tried to file my EO complaint about all these comments I was reading, I was told I was only allowed to file a complaint against someone in my direct chain of command. Unlike, for example, sexual harassment complaints, which could be made against someone outside your chain of command. So if someone in the unit next door were making comments which constituted unlawful discrimination, I couldn't complain. And unless someone in that unit complained, they got away with it. Didn't make any sense to me, but that's what the EO reps told me. But it wasn't long until someone in my direct chain of command, very high up the chain actually, gave me that opportunity.